Hey, hey, and welcome back to The Good, the Bad, and the Techie, a podcast all about leading edge technology. I'm VP of Research, John Collins, if I can get it out of my mouth.
I'm CTO Howard Holton.
And this week, we'll try to cut through the jargon and give you what you need to make sense of it all. And in this case, we're going to be talking about the hot topic that everyone's talking about, or are they really, or are they just generating it, which is ChatGPT. So let's get down to it. ChatGPT, Howard. I mean, should we just go home now?
We could. I will say, and I'm just going to get this out of the way. If you have nothing interesting to say, ChatGPT can say it better.
And that's kind of, I mean, I confess to being a complete, I confess to being a partial skeptic on this thing. Not because I can't see that it's having a massive impact, and clearly it is, but because I think it's having a massive impact on things that are boring. And
okay.
So I'm kind of, well, that was boring. And I know it's affecting people's jobs and blah, 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 blah. But so it's kind of, doesn't it give us more room to do more interesting things, I guess is my take.
Yes. So
unpack that.
ChatGPT is a generative AI. Generative AI is a large language learning model. Effectively, it's just, to make this simple, it's just perfect English with the encyclopedia of the internet as of a few years ago, right? What it does really well is it understands what words go next to what words to make things make sense, which allows it to be the perfect kind of language companion. And by perfect, I mean it is grammatically correct, and it is optimized for what plays the best on the internet. So search engine optimized. That being said, it can be really, really valuable to automate the things that don't require, one, you to be correct, and two, you to be interesting, useful, or have something to say. Right? Now, if we think about what we do in our day-to-day lives and how many messages we send and how many things we respond to, right? There is an obvious kind of value in integrating ChatGPT with other pieces of automation to make our lives a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Email was a fantastic thing. I'm waiting for someone to come out with an email plugin that automatically replies, "Yup, got it," and adds tasks. Right? Can you automatically use AI to take an email that comes in that says, "Hey, Howard, I need you to do this thing," add it to a task list, and then reply back and say, "Yup, got it." And then
if
at the
something
same
else comes
time,
in that thread, just adds the extra bit to the task
correct.
list.
And then at the same time, if I when I check the box that says it's complete, it then replies back to that same thread and says, "This is now complete." Right? That would be extremely useful. Matter of fact, if I had an assistant that just did that, that would be extremely useful. I don't care whether it's virtual or physical. You know what I mean?
That's literally how I start my day. So
Correct.
I would save a couple of hours a day just
Right.
with that feature.
And because the AI understands the language and all of its context, it can identify things like, "Hey, you just replied to this email. There's no new task in here," and not add it to the task because there's no additional knowledge needed, right? A ticketing system can't do that. A ticketing system will create a ticket for you, but then every email gets appended to the ticket.
I mean, to be fair, I wouldn't even mind if I then had to check the email to make sure that it hadn't missed anything, because that's like 2 seconds. The extra the 10 minutes is finding the window with the Trello in it, or whichever task tool
Yeah.
I'm using today, and then finding the task that was connected to that, and then not getting distracted by the other 5 tasks that are kind of overlapping from it. And
Yeah, I'd be okay if
just to do a quick check,
for
sure.
sure. I'd be okay if what the tool did was it actually just appended the emails. It just didn't append them with an alert if there was no additional task. So you could always just quickly read and go, got it. Right. I'm fine with that. I'm I'm fine having me as a human check its work and make sure it's doing it properly.
I think
Um,
internally I just shed a little tear at the thought of having that capability.
I'm
Yes,
gonna make a
please.
note because there might be a way to do that.
Yeah. Oh, look, we're actually actioning. I mean, if it really worked, it would have made that note, right?
True, true. Um, so generative AI is really good for those things. It has some problems. The first of which is it's a tool that derives the mean and the best mean in just about any case. So it's not really innovative, right? Um, the second, it's really only aware of things that have been written and published. The third is it doesn't have the ability to say no, right? It's a language model, so
Hmm.
it must have an answer every time, right? It's not a scientific model. It's not anything else, right? It's not a mathematical model. It's not a research model. It is a language model. And as a language model, its job is to create language. So if you ask it a question it doesn't know, it's okay that it makes it up because making it up doesn't violate the fact that it gave you language as a return.
And
We
it's
call that
it's
hallucinating.
interesting um, when Microsoft were talking about what they were doing around it. They said there are some places that you really shouldn't use it, and they kind of said anything where there's any risk at all that it could get it wrong and have an impact of that. So anything legal, but also anything else that kind of fits that definition.
Well,
Um,
we do have
so
two attorneys that used it for court pleads. They filed pleads with the court, right? Briefings, sorry. They filed
oh
and
no, for I think for research it's brilliant. They
for
said yeah,
research, it's brilliant.
for research.
However, they actually filed documents with the court. They had
Ooh,
6 citations in those documents. All 6 were false. ChatGPT made up all 6 citations,
sheesh.
and they didn't check. They just submitted it because when they asked for the citation, it gave them a citation, which it also made up. It can't say, "I don't know."
Well, that's a bit dumb.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, they were total idiots because if they'd have just followed the citations, they have access to the law library, right? They're attorneys, they subscribe to that sort of thing. They would have found, "Oh, this doesn't actually exist. We need to actually do some work."
Hmm.
Right? They were dumb. They deserve to be censored or worse. I'm kind of okay with the court saying, "Hey, I don't think you have the cognitive reasoning skills, the critical thinking skills necessary to be an attorney, which is kind of the fundamental requirement of being an attorney. We're just going to take away your law license until you can prove that you actually have those skills over the course of the next 6 or 7 years. Maybe go back to being interns for a while."
Mm.
I'm certain the court won't do that, but I'd be okay with being incredibly firm. At the very least, censure that is emphatic and sends a message to the entire industry would be useful. Right, a $5,000 fine is not going to be significant enough.
And that's a really good indication of where the tools are at, and because something that's always in my head is, and this is obviously it's kind of human narcissist. So it's not me being narcissistic about me. Unusually, it's more me being narcissistic about the human race, and we're always better than these tools. Um, but there's always that gap between what a smart person can do when they're being smart and what the tools can do. And if that gap still exists and you put a dumb person in front of it, then all hell breaks loose.
That is 100% correct.
Mm,
Right. ChatGPT is the greatest tool ever created for critical thinkers. Right. It is the cynic's greatest tool as well, because the cynic's likely to check everything, not trust anything. Um, so I have a hobby that is
mm,
half, quarter, eighth, 16th profession. Right, it starts to bleed into profession. I get up on stage several times a year and teach people how to play Dungeons and Dragons, how to be a dungeon master, how to create a world, that sort of thing.
mm-hmm,
I do that because, well, I've played Dungeons and Dragons since I was a kid at church camp, and I was taught how to play by my church during the the what was it called? The Satan scare. Anyways,
There's a whole bunch of rabbit holes we could go down
there's a whole
there,
bunch.
isn't there?
And D&D's become the Satanic Panic. Thank you, the Satanic Panic. It was during the Satanic Panic age, which I always found kind of funny. Right, my church group taught me how to play in at youth camp.
I thought it was a satanic mechanic, but that's Rocky Horror, isn't it?
Well, that's Ozzy Osbourne, the ultimate satanic mechanic, or Aldous Huxley. I don't want to get down this rabbit hole.
No, it's definitely Rocky Horror.
So,
Sweet transvestite.
Okay, I got a rabbit hole for a second. Meatloaf was in Rocky Horror Picture Show.
He was.
Do you know what the next film he was in?
I do not.
Tenacious D, Pick of Destiny.
I didn't know that was the next film he's been
in. That was the next film he sung in. My bad. I'm not certain that was the next film he was in, but that was the next film that he actually sung in. He didn't want to sing on film, and Jack Black convinced him to be in and sing in the Tenacious D, Pick of Destiny, which, if you haven't seen, is one of my all-time favorite movies.
I know I haven't seen it, but a long time ago. I should watch that again.
Yeah, it's so much fun. Anyhow, so I teach people how to play Dungeons and Dragons because new people get into it. They're handed a 160-page book and say, "Go away and read the book and come back when you're done. You can't play until then." And I absolutely despise that. I don't like gatekeeping. That's why I do what I do professionally. So I get up on stage and I teach people how to build a world and play and start a campaign. For them, for this, generative AI is the greatest invention of all time. I can literally describe the character I want to play, the game I want to play it in, and the style of play that I have, and it will create a character that is ideal enough for me
as a new person.
As a new person. The entire character sheet, at whatever level I specify, shows the feats, the spells, assign the abilities, the race, the class, every single thing. It will do all of it, and it will just output it for me in a format that I can plug into whatever character sheet I'm using and whatever tool that I'm using it in. Why is that nice? It's nice because in 3 minutes, I have a character that roughly aligns with what I said I wanted to do, how I wanted to play, and I don't have to do any of the math or any of the clunky parts that are hard for me when I'm first learning. Right? As a dungeon master, my players will never, ever, ever choose the path that I've laid out clearly for them, and thus the one that I've planned the best. They will always somehow, it's Murphy's Law of Dungeons and Dragons, they will always choose the one that I have the least done for. Right? The advantage that ChatGPT has is whatever they choose, if I have it already planned, cool, we go right along with my plan. So when I don't, I type it in and I get a result.
I'm not a Dungeons and Dragons aficionado, so what I'm getting from this is when you're building the world, you kind of create models that, or kind of rules that the world kind of works by.
Yeah. So think of
it. If someone comes in with some random character, it's just not gonna fit.
Well,
the way that the world works.
So think of Dungeons and Dragons as a video game without any user interface. So all the physics engine exists, the rules engine exists, but there's no interface whatsoever. Right? And so you, as a person sitting around a table, declare what you want to do. It has to match the physics engine, it has to match the rules engine. Otherwise, you're welcome to do it. And then we all sit around a table and we tell what I call a communal story.
Is this like low code?
That's an.
I just went.
I like low code.
I just went down a kind of. Is this like Unity 3D plus being able to define things on the fly?
I mean, it's collaborative storytelling is really what Dungeons and Dragons or any role playing game is, right? But people who are trying to play often run into, I need a good DM, right? I need a good storyteller, because what happens with my players if I've got everything set up to the west and they want to go to the east? Well, the beautiful part is, okay, you go to town. I have an inn defined, and I have one shop defined. Cool. I decided I need to go to the library. Well, crap, I don't have a library defined.
Right? Got it. Yeah.
So define the town.
You need things to fit within the kind of the focus, the definitions that you've created. It's less about the rules and more about the kind of
correct. Correct.
we're going to
It's
attack the
about
castle, but this isn't a land where castles exist.
well, and there's a common theme in the two examples that we've given so far. It's about automating the things that you don't have to care about, right? The things that I care about in my Dungeons and Dragons campaign, I've already mapped those. I've already written those. Those are really important to me. They're central to me. All the characters that I love, I've well mapped out. That's, I don't know, 50 in a world that may contain 1,000. Okay, so let ChatGPT figure out the other 950.
But that to me goes to the heart of why I kind of feel both skeptical and positive about the whole current state of AI, is that it it doesn't diminish because it can only do it's a tool to solve one particular problem at the moment, and I know it might be able to solve other problems later and then have other ramifications, but right now it's about another layer of automation,
That is
and
correct.
that does automate things that some people have as their job
That
potentially,
but
like
potentially, yeah.
but even I mean, because in principle, for example, copywriting, you say, oh, all copywriters are going to be out of a job, all the SEO experts are going to be out of a job, but I'm reasonably confident that most most copy coming out of this stuff needs work. And I'm also
Yes.
reasonably confident that copywriters don't want to be stuck doing boring writing all the time. They'd quite happily do more interesting stuff. And I'm also reasonably confident, if I just finish the triangle, that when everyone's using ChatGPT to generate articles or whatever it is, we'll stop reading them because it's so obviously kind of it's just boring. There's no spirit there. It's like the storytelling. There's no joy to it.
Correct. When you have a tool that drives to the mean, you can only get the mean out of it. Who wants to read that? Who's excited about that? Right?
Kind of
Um,
thing.
I have a friend that writes for video games. Right? He's a video game storyteller, and so he's paid to write the game. Right? He had one game that he did. They're going to do a sequel, and he said, "Cool. Do we want to talk about when we're going to do this and get me on contract?" I said, "Nah, we don't actually think the story is that valuable. We're just going to use ChatGPT to do it." In that case, they actually found the perfect tool for them because
Mm.
they don't care if the story is any good. They don't find it valuable. They'll just use ChatGPT because it's a box they need to check. And therefore, terrible, because it's a terrible storytelling tool,
Mm.
terrible is good enough.
Mm. And I think that's the. I mean, it's all these articles that are kind of. If you these days you say you want to change the battery in your iPhone or whatever it is, and you go to a very standardized article that says, "Oh, you want to change the battery in your iPhone." There are several reasons you might want to do this. Bing, 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 bing. Now there are several problems you might have when you do it. Bing, 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 and therefore you need to do this. So I just go right. It's that kind of article.
Correct.
I'll go three-quarters of the way down and get to the I need a Torque 8 screwdriver or whatever it is, and I say thank you very much, and I'll go on my way. I All of those words are completely redundant
Hmm.
because they're made to look like a human wrote them, but by doing that, they've then kind of obsoleted themselves automatically, if you like. And that it
Well, I mean, it's also at some point the algorithm, right? The SEO algorithm determined that a blog post needed to be 2,000 to 2,500 words. Otherwise, it doesn't resonate,
mm,
which
mm,
means every time I go to find a recipe for something, I got 2,000 words that are worthless. I just want the recipe. I
just
don't
give
want you to tell me the
a
made up
flipping
story
recipe.
about how
Yeah,
this was your mother's favorite recipe. You have 5 articles that say it was your mother's favorite recipe that are all different recipes. They can't all 5 be your mother's favorite recipe, right? Like, I get it. You have to generate 2,000 words for SEO to work, but at some point, we broke the internet by applying algorithms that never actually drove to the reality we were looking for, but instead were these self-fulfilling prophecies, right? I want when I pick, like, I do that same search for I want to replace my iPhone battery. I know the first 3 pages are all going to be exactly the same article, but you know where I go? I click on the one that is the Reddit link because that's somebody in really short words telling me exactly the steps I need to go through.
mm.
Right? Why do I go to YouTube? I go to YouTube because I can fast forward through the video to when they start applying a screwdriver, and I know I'm going to get exactly what I need, and it's done in 10 minutes. Right? I mean, at some point we've broken the internet, and AI is not going to help us with that,
Mm.
right? AI
Well,
is going to drive to the algorithm that says what makes an ideal search result, not away from it. It's not going to help us define a new one. Sorry.
interestingly, I think the very point you made about email, uh, it's we're all seeing ChatGPT as kind of a way of creating stuff. Thus far, I haven't seen anyone looking at this as a way of simplifying the stuff that's created. So just in the same way that for email, you don't you want a tool to kind of browse through and pull out the juicy bits and turn it into actions. Similarly, when I want to change the battery of my iPhone, whatever, I want ChatGPT to go out on the internet, get rid of all the drossy information that I don't need to say, and just say, "Here's the Reddit link," and I'll say thank you, and suddenly it's become part of the Google search.
Do you read Cory Doctorow? I think I pronounced the name right.
Not for a while, but yeah, I know him. Yeah,
So he just wrote an article about the enshittification of the internet, right?
that's
And
pretty much where my head is. Yeah.
well, and that's everything he wrote was correct. And basically, what he said is everything new and interesting that comes out has three stages. The first stage is they're really good to the users and they lose money. They build a strong user base, and it's really good
Mm-hmm.
for the users. Then they go after the businesses, and they're really good to the businesses, and they shit all over the users. And then when they've decided that has generated enough revenue that their valuation is high, they pull all the value back for themselves, and now they're shitty to the users and they're shitty to the business customer, and they're just good to their shareholder. And it's the enshittification of every service that we use. And if you think about like the evolution of Facebook, when Facebook first came out, there were no ads, right?
Mm-hmm.
There were no viral media, fake news, bullshit stuff, right? It was all this wonderful way to communicate with people you hadn't talked to in years, right? You could find your childhood friend that you just drifted apart, you moved, whatever, and you hadn't talked to in years, right? Um, and then well, the media stuff started to happen, and the viral stuff started to happen, and the algorithm started to take control, and all of a sudden you get
Yeah.
exposed to the worst, and then the ads start, right? And
The graph.
now it's just a sheer focus on what keeps you the most engaged, even if it's a complete lie and totally enraging, so that Facebook's numbers look good so they can share it with their shareholders,
Mm. Mm.
right? I mean, when was the last time Google actually had the result you wanted without you having to really work on your search prompt to get to a result that wasn't just ad-filled garbage, right?
Yep.
Instagram's no different, right? On and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
All these services that are supposed to be great. Twitter is terrible. It's just all bots, right? We could solve bots in a weekend, but nobody wants to because, well, that wouldn't look good on your shareholder report because you just got rid of most of your traffic.
So, is it a practical solution that we use ChatGPT to go up against ChatGPT to just deliver what we wanted in the first place, which is a clean information flow from people to people?
So actually, the thing that I use ChatGPT for most of the time is I do some engineered prompts, right? Prompt engineering is the key to winning in ChatGPT to say what are the 10 things I need to know in single sentences,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and I love doing that because even if it's something I feel I know pretty well, right? I'll throw a prompt at ChatGPT and say, "Hey, give me the 15 things that I should know about this in one or two sentences each." It then gives me this nice bulleted list, and I can go through and I go, "Yep, yep, yep. Ooh, interesting. Now I need to look at that one." Right? And if I'm not familiar, it gives me 15 things I need to go look at. If I'm super familiar, it gives me 3,
Mm.
right? I love being it always gives me a new perspective on something that I may have even thought that I knew really well, right? And for that, I think it's great. For summarizing things, I think it's great. Um, we're also starting to see see integration into platforms and tools, right? Microsoft's build was recent, right?
Mm.
It just happened, and so I'm still catching up on the videos from watching the streams. And I'm watching the Microsoft Power Platform, which is their low code, no code toolkit, right? That's now I think 7 different tools, and they've integrated OpenAI into all of them, right? So one of them
This
is
is the
called Microsoft.
Copilot thing.
Yes, so Microsoft Copilot, which uses OpenAI, has now been integrated into the Power Platform. And so something like Pages, you can describe the page you want, hit enter, and it will generate the full HTML code for the page that you want. And it's code, right? You can just edit it in Microsoft Visual Studio. So as a rapid deployment tool, as a rapid prototyping tool, as a rapid development tool, I think it has phenomenal potential. But you can also tell you really, really need to get good at prompt engineering. And for anyone listening to this who's not familiar with the term, we don't have time to dig deep into it, but Google prompt engineering for ChatGPT.
Hmm.
The quality of your prompt will define and drive the quality of the results that are returned. The more specific you can get in your prompt, the better the results are going to be when you get a return from any of these large language models. And that includes even the graphic ones, right? If you want to use Midjourney or Dolly or any of those, the quality of your prompt is going to have a massive impact on the quality of the response.
I mean, interestingly, there's two kinds of something you said earlier around the fact it will always give you an answer, even when the answer should be, "I'm not going to give you an answer." It will always just do, here's some words, make with them as you will. And so there's two kinds of discernment that humans. There's probably three actually. Bear with me as I work through this. So the first is just the ability to know that the question was stupid. But then the second is the ability to discern the responses and go, yep, fair, fair, fair. Oh, that's a silly thing to put in, but I see why I did it. But then the third is where it gets really interesting, and that's the fact that nothing ever is static. You don't go to, for example, you don't go to Google for some information in order to find it out and go, thank you, I'm now going to sit on the sofa for the rest of the day and ponder that information. It's part of a flow. You could be getting your holiday plans together and you need that information in order to know what to book, standard analogies. But then that's in order to get you on holiday. And then once you get there, you want to kind of actually. So all of that information has got to fit ongoing discernment, because we're forever making decisions. And
Yep.
so ChatGPT is a static research tool. Tell me about Bali. Tell me 10 things I need to know. The places that are good to go in Bali. As you say, I could find that out on a generated website already, but that's not where the information stops. The information stops when I actually go there, when I book into places, when I find out for myself, and then when I do something, etc. And it really, really can't go where humans go, physically or mentally, right now.
It's interesting that you brought up travel because one of the things ChatGPT is phenomenal at is helping you travel plan.
Mm. I can see you typing there, so
Yes,
clearly it's
I'm actually. You gave me an
you're chat
idea.
GPTing.
I'm ChatGPTing a vacation prompt to see how detailed it will get.
Interesting. Yeah, I'd never thought of using it in that way, but already I'm thinking, why aren't I using it in that way? And I can almost see the point, because it can get me to the beach, but then I need to be on the beach. That's ultimately where it can take me all the way there.
So okay, so this is insane. So what I said was I want to take a vacation to the Cayman Islands. I'm an American and do not like a lot of people. I prefer to see nature and read on the beach. When should I go? What island should I visit? What hotel should I stay at? What should I do during the day? And what restaurant should I visit? For a nature-focused and scheduled vacation in the Cayman Islands, I recommend visiting the island of Little Cayman. It's the smallest and least populated of the three main islands and offers a tranquil atmosphere with beautiful beaches and abundant marine life. Here's a guide to help plan your trip. Then the best time to go. Choosing an island, accommodation options, which it gives me actual resorts,
Mm.
daytime activities, again, explore the beaches. Then it gives me the places to go, right? Point of Sand or Owen Island on Little Cayman. Snorkeling and diving. Go to Bloody Bay Wall, Marine Park, Jackson's Blight, or the famous Mixing Bowl. Wildlife watching. Visit the Bobby Pound Natural Nature Reserve. Restaurant recommendations, and then it gives me restaurant recommendations that are on the island that I will be staying on.
Not bad.
Right. For those sort of things, this is really a really good tool. Now, I have to make sure those restaurants exist, that they're open, that they'll be open when I want to go. I have to make all the reservations to make sure the hotels are there and exist, that all of those places exist and are open. But I now have an itinerary I can walk through and validate. And for that, it's very good.
I mean, I guess as a final question, is what stage of the shitification are we at? Is this still the clean version, and suddenly it's going to be overblown by corporate interests, and
This
then
is
it's going to vanish up its behind?
Yeah, this is still very early on.
Mm.
I think one of the nice things about AI is the algorithms are well known enough that there will be continual competition. Um, Open source will make sure that we have access to the root technology, even if we don't have access to the free resources to run it. And so I think there will always be a version that is less crapified than others. But we will see more and more integration into corporate platforms and corporate products. And I really have to advise customers, when you hear ChatGPT being attached to something that you own or want to own, ask a lot of questions. What are they doing to make sure it's not hallucinating? What are they doing to ensure your privacy? What are they doing to manage security? I think these are big questions and concerns that we all need to have. Personally, for your personal use, I think it can be a lot more free. But when it comes to your corporate data and your corporate usage, I think you really need to think a lot about it.
Awesome. Well, I'm done. I'm done. I'm thinking as a research tool right now. Great. Prompt engineering. That's where you should put your effort in to make it a really good research tool for you. And over and out from me.
Well, on that note, this has been another episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Techie. I hope you enjoyed it and found it as engaging as John and I find talking to each other. If you did, please like and subscribe on all your appropriate channels. And whether you did or didn't, we would love to hear your comments or feedback. So be sure to leave those on the channel. Thank you, and we'll see you next week on another episode.